What's up, true believers? Is this the very first design and drawing of Spider-Man by Jack Kirby, written by Stan Lee? Or is this the very first actual design of Spider-Man from 1954, 8 years before Spider-Man's release? Well, guys, you're about to find out some mind-blowing secrets and some conspiracies, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. Guys, my name is Greg Weick. I'm a comic book artist, writer, and director of BeyondComics.tv, and I'm here to share some very exciting, interesting news with you about the creation of Spider-Man. So I'm going to target and focus on some of these pictures of the wall crawler himself and get to the bottom of this mystery. Hold on and take a look. Here we go. So it was recently discovered that Ben Cooper, the costume company from the 1950s, actually seems to have designed this costume of the Spider-Man, which is pretty crazy that this came out 8 years before. And guess who worked on this costume, or was rumored to? Jack Kirby, which is very interesting. Now, fast forwarding to this, here's a close-up shot of that same mask called Spider-Man without the dash, 1954. You can see it very clearly here. Now, one of the things they did is later update this costume, as you can see here, turning the mask with holes in it into a spider and a web. And that is the actual original costume that was discovered in someone's basement, a toy collector, which you can Google online. Now, here is the later licensed released Spider-Man with the dash, as you see right over here. And this is actually similar to one of the costumes they had produced all the way from that time, which would be now 1963. In October, they released this one, all the way through the 70s and early 80s until they started making it look more movie accurate or cartoon accurate, comic accurate. Now, this drawing here is the very first drawing that you see Steve Ditko got published in for the first panel of Spider-Man in costume, which is very interesting. What a lot of people don't realize, and I'll get to this drawing in a second, is that this final printed cover of Spider-Man, first appearance, Amazing Fantasy 15, actually was not drawn by Steve Ditko. It was inked by Steve Ditko, who gets credit as co-creator of Spider-Man. Apparently, this was penciled by Jack Kirby, which is really shocking, and all of you guys can Google this online. So Jack Kirby is the one who actually came up and did this cover right here in pencil that Steve Ditko inked, even though Steve Ditko drew the interior of the comic. Moving on, this is the original Steve Ditko rejected cover for Amazing Fantasy 15. Check this out, guys. This is really fascinating. So apparently, this was rejected, even though he was the artist inside the book. Later, that same image eventually appeared up in the Mighty World of Marvel pinup page, as you see over here. I just want you guys to see this. So it's interesting that this was the first submission for Amazing Fantasy 15. It ended up as a pinup later, but of course they ended up going with the cover that we all have grown to know and love. Now, that being said, this is going to blow your mind. Going back over here really quickly. In Stan Lee's memoir, Amazing, Fantastic, Incredible, a marvelous memoir of Stan Lee, you can see it right here, just came out. They imply very clearly that this was in fact the very first design and drawing of Spider-Man by Jack Kirby, and that Stan Lee did not like it, complaining that it looks too muscular and that he wanted Spider-Man to be more of a scrawny, thin kid rather than a super heroic looking hero at that time. That being said, this is the drawing that was done. Now, we just, they do not specify in this book if this is a redrawn representation of Jack Kirby's original design. But after this is when Stan Lee claims to have left Jack Kirby and gone to Steve Ditko and asking him to do his own version of Spider-Man. Now, again, Stan Lee is potentially or they're all potentially claiming or taking artistic license, however they want to do it. They don't specify that this could have been the very first drawing of Spider-Man by Jack Kirby. Now, what Steve Ditko says over here online is that this is actually the very first drawing of Spider-Man by Jack Kirby. And, of course, Steve Ditko right here lays it all out. So if he is completely correct, then boom, this supposedly, he claims, is the actual first design of the costume of Spider-Man. In which case, if this is accurate, which it could very well be, why not, then that would imply that Steve Ditko is the guy who actually designed the Spider-Man suit as we all originally thought. But even that being said, do not forget that right over here, you see 8 years earlier, this costume from Ben Cooper Studios actually being the very first Spider costume design. Now, people can look at this and interpret it as spider webs made into a mask, but kind of isn't that what this is too, right? So it's hard to say, was it coincidence or not? But what's interesting is that even though Ben Cooper Company made this costume, they still struck a deal with Marvel to actually license officially this version of the costume. So we don't know what that deal is, and we probably never will, since the company is no longer in existence. Now, moving on over here, what's very interesting is that Stan Lee, of course, has gone on record, and you can Google it, saying that he was inspired by The Spider, which was an old serial from long ago, even though there was no spider-related costume design there whatsoever. But what I find interesting is that this Jack Kirby design, which Steve Ditko drew all of these. Steve Ditko is claiming that this is how Jack Kirby's original design looked. But then we go back to here and see that Stan Lee is saying potentially that this is. Now, of course, this could very simply be drawn by Colleen Doran, the artist of the book, just to kind of make it simple for readers to get the idea. And this may absolutely not in any way be what it actually looked like. But the point is that, is this actually similar to what the first design looked like? In which case, that would put Jack Kirby as the first designer of the costume if it looked like this. Otherwise, if it looked like Steve Ditko said, then that's completely unrelated. Now, Marvel declined comment because obviously there's fear of anybody who was related to the Ben Cooper Company possibly coming out and wanting to take ownership or claim co-creative credit over Spider-Man. And of course, they don't want those kind of lawsuits, right? But you got to think of it like this. No matter what, Marvel Comics owns all of the rights to Spider-Man. That's very important that they own the creator rights of Spider-Man specifically. And Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, all work for hire, and Stan Lee being, of course, in a position where he cannot even write his own story of Spider-Man without the permission of Marvel, which is crazy. Stan Lee has created some of the most iconic characters of all time, and he is one hell of a hero to me, as is Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. I mean, these are some of my heroes in the world of comic books and have inspired me to do what I'm doing today. But one of the things that I find fascinating is that you have to try to figure out and decode who created what. And I wish there was a clear delineation of who did what so we don't have to have this giant question mark looming overhead. And I just believe credit, should be due to anyone who deserves it, that they created what they created. And that's very, very important. So, it's interesting. But again, it should be noted that Jack Kirby actually said that he came up with the name Spider-Man years before, in the 1950s. Again, possibly working for Ben Cooper, the costume company, and helping develop that yellow Spidey outfit that you see, that jumpsuit. So a lot of this is on Google and online, so I'm sure you're going to have a party looking at all that stuff. If you guys have any additional comments, I would love for you to post them below. Please make sure to subscribe for updates, and please keep comic books alive. And for those of you who are newcomers to this, remember, Stan Lee is the guy who writes and names and does the stories for these characters and combines his amazing writing skills with some amazing artists to create the design of the costumes and the visuals, and has been a real inspiration to many independent artists around the world. And I'm very blessed and honored that I am able to work in this field as an independent comic book creator, having worked on Spawn for Image Comics by Todd McFarlane, issue number 30, which you can see right here now, and going on to create some of my own new superhero characters, Gekido, Codename Justice, Ravidactyl, and a whole bunch of new ones to come. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe. Stay tuned for updates, and please post your comments below. Thanks so much, and take care.
Welcome to 2020.
It's a favorite story for news. Greg White is an animation artist.
You can appear in our comic books, live-action films, or do a voiceover for one of our cartoons and be immortalized forever just by entering the contest below. We turned supermodel Coco into a superhero, and next it could be you. For more details, or click on one of the links below for our contest raffle. And yes, you or your family, your kids, yourself, anybody can actually win and be immortalized in our upcoming comic books based on my character over here, Ravidactyl, or Codename Justice, which can also be seen in our Comic-Con limited edition exclusive comic book called Gekido vs. Codename Justice by Brendan Wilson and myself. Also look for Gekido #1 available now. Anyway, good luck, hope you win, and stay tuned for more updates at BeyondComics.tv. And to enter the contest, once again, the website is BeyondComics.tv. And make sure to subscribe.
To get Greg White and Brandon Wilson's new comic book, Gekido, featuring Coco as a superhero, just go to BeyondComics.tv to order your exclusive limited edition, signed, original copy. That's BeyondComics.tv to order.